I'm Paul Houselander, General Manager here at Vitanium. Vitanium is a Veeam cloud and service provider partner, and we exist basically to help elevate our customers' data protection and data resilience. Today I want to talk to you about a Veeam feature called Scale Out Backup Repositories, and we'll do a quick demo of how to create one. Okay, so here we have a standard Veeam installation. I've already created a few repositories here. I've got some Windows-based one, Linux one. I've got a little QNAP NAS, which is an SMB share. Okay, so normally you would target a job. I've got a job here that I created earlier, and this one is just targeting a standard backup repository. Okay, so that default backup repository is this one here, which is actually this machine, just in the C backup directory. Okay, so I run that backup job and the files will land there. Now, obviously it's not a good idea to have a backup jobs pointing to your C drive, but if you did, and this was running out of space, I'd be a little bit stuck. I'd maybe have to create a new direct attached repository, or add another disk, reconfigure it, and then I'd have to come back to the job. I would change where the repository, which repository I wanted it to point to. I believe it'll offer me to move the files. Okay, yeah, do you want to move your existing backups? And obviously that takes time. And then, you know, as time goes on, that repository fills up and then you have to do it again. Like I say, it's a management headache. Okay, so let's do this with a scale out. Okay, so like I said, I've already created a few repositories here, but if you look on the left hand navigation panel, as well as backup repositories, which are your normal ones, you've got scale out. Now it's important to know, when you create your scale out, you already need to have created the extent of that scale out as normal repositories. Okay, and another thing to bear in mind is if a backup repository is already in use with a backup job, that backup repository cannot become an extent of a scale out backup repository. You'd have to evacuate the backups, remove them out, change the jobs, and then you could add it. But yeah, let's start from scratch. I've got a couple here. I'm going to make this Linux repository an extent, and this QNAP. So you can see I'm mixing the type of storage as well. Okay, so I've already created these repositories. I go to Scale Out Repositories, right click, add Scale Out, give it a nice name, and here's where I was talking about the tiers. So our first one is our performance tier. Okay, so it's giving me the options of which repositories I could include. So I'm going to include the Linux one, and I'm going to include the QNAP one. Okay. The placement policy, data locality means that all the backup files for a particular job reside on the same extent. You can use performance, which means it can spread them around different extents, but the problem with that is if you did have a storage failure, your backups aren't going to be much use, because some of your incrementals will be on one extent, your full backup might be on another. Okay, so I generally stick to data locality unless you're very, very confident in your underlying storage platforms. Okay, I won't go into the capacity tier right now, but let's not extend it yet. And same again with the archive tier. Okay, so scale out backup repository created successfully. What we're going to do, we're going to go to backup jobs. I'm going to create a backup job which is targeting the scale out. So let's call it SOBR. Okay, let's add, I've only got one in my demo environment here, one virtual machine. Let's pick that one. Okay, so storage, so it's defaulted to that one, but you can see I've got this extra option here now, which is my scale out backup repository. Okay, retention's only 7 days. Let's bump that up to 30 days. I'm not going to worry about GFS for the moment. and I'm not going to do a secondary destination. Okay, guest processing. Let's run it automatically, and let's run the job when it finishes. Okay, so you can see the job is finished now. A nice feature, you can go into the backup infrastructure, back into your scale out, and you can see your different extents, and it shows you how much space is being used by each extent. Okay, so as simple as that. Go back, you should see, if I go into disk, you can see here's my backup job. I can do my usual options, instant recovery, I can restore the VM, guest files, restore to Amazon or Azure, and the various other options that you can do with any normal backup. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to extend our scale out to include a capacity tier. Okay, so you go back to backup infrastructure, right click the scale out that you had created, properties. Actually, sorry, what we need to do first off is create a extent which can act as the capacity tier. So we're going to create some object storage here. So I'm going to add a backup repository, select object storage, select S3 compatible. We're going to choose this S3 compatible option. Okay, I'm going to target our Vitanium's Object Hive platform. Okay, endpoint. Okay, so I'll put that endpoint in, the region, and I've already got the secret access key and secret key connected. Okay, so it's just going to read from the object storage, list of buckets available. I'm going to pick my demo bucket. Okay, we'll create a folder. Let's just call it Veeam Backups. Okay, and you can limit, if you're using a third-party cloud provider, you may want to control your costs, so you don't want it to go above a certain amount. So I'll leave that as 10 terabytes. And then this is the important bit. Okay, so like I said earlier, you configure the immutability at the repository level, not the backup job level. Okay, so in here, I'm just going to accept the default settings, but I'm going to make backups immutable for 30 days. Okay, so what that means, if a bad actor gains access to your systems, say the worst case is that they gain access to your backup systems. Okay, first thing they're going to want to do, they're going to want to delete or encrypt your backup files. So basically, you've got nowhere to turn, and you've got that horrible option of either paying a ransom or losing your data. Okay, and this is what this immutability protects you from, that situation. Because even if they gained access to all of those systems, they will not be able to delete these backups. And I'll demonstrate that shortly. Okay, but we're going to make that immutable for 30 days. The rest are just the normal, just some defaults. Okay, that's now created. Okay, object storage repository has been saved successfully. Let's next and finish. And you can see here, we've now got some S3 compatible storage. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to extend our scale out to include that object storage as an extent. Okay, so we right click, properties. Okay, and we're going to whiz down to capacity tier. Okay, and I'm going to say I want to extend this scale out backup repository with object storage. So if I select here, it should have the object storage we created, which it does. Click OK. And then these are important options. Okay, So you can copy backups to object storage as soon as they're created. So effectively that's like a mirror. Okay, so as soon as a backup lands in your performance tier, it will tier that data off to object storage. Okay, so it's like a mirror of your performance tier. This option here is what I was talking about earlier, where you can have your most local backups just on your performance tier, but as they get older, so in this case 14 days, we're going to move those backups out of the performance tier and into the object storage. Okay, so that frees up space on your performance tier, but you've still got the backups. They're just stored in your capacity tier in your object storage. So the purposes of this, I'm going to actually copy them immediately. Okay, as always, it's very important, you should always encrypt data. So especially because you're sending your data off-site. Okay, and you can also specify an offload window. So basically, obviously, this is going to use your internet. If you haven't got a fantastic internet connection, you may not want it to be offloading during working hours because it could affect people's normal day-to-day work. But in my case, I'm just going to allow it to tier at any time. Okay, I'm going to allow that to copy it just so that I can show you what it looks like. Okay, we're not using archive tier in this case, so if I apply, okay, so that's been successful. Finish, and you can now see behind in my scale out, I've now got 3 extents. Okay, I've got my Linux repository, my QNAP share, and object storage. Okay, because I told it to immediately copy the backups, it's kicked off a tiering job. Okay, so it knows that it's got 1 backup to offload, so I'm going to allow that to finish. Okay, so as you can see, it's offloaded successfully. Okay, you can view more details of the offload here. Click OK. And just to prove it's there, so if I go back to home, okay, you can see I've now got this additional option here for capacity tier. Okay, and there's my backup. It's been mirrored, so it's exactly the same as this backup. Okay, and just to show this in the capacity tier is off-site. Okay, it's with the Vitanium cloud object storage. But I can still right-click, I can still instant recover, and I can do all the other options that I can with the backup on my performance tier, which is local to me. So I mean, that's a really good one. If we're achieving the 3-2-1 rule. Okay, so we've got our 3 copies of the data. So we've got our primary, the VM is the primary copy. The second copy sits in my network on my performance tier, on my local extent. And I've got my third copy is off-site in object storage, and it's also immutable. So let's test that immutability. I'm going to try and delete that from disk. Okay, let's try and delete it. So let's pretend I'm a bad actor. I'm going to wipe this out so that I can extort a ransom out of you. Okay, so at this point it looks like it's going to process it. But there you go. Failed to delete the backup, unable to delete in the capacity tier because it is immutable until the 20th of July. Okay, so there's no way that the ransom, the bad actor can actually access these backups and alter them in any way. You can always restore from them. Okay, so a fantastic last line of defense. Okay, and I think that's about it for the demo.